What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of 30 Minutes of Hell podcast. I am your host, Brandon Baker. I'm joined, as always, by Joey Jackson and Matt Jackson. And we are brought to you by the Field of 68 Podcast Network. You can find us on YouTube, Twitter, wherever you get your podcasts under 30 Minutes of Hell. And let's get into it. We've got some more Arkansas basketball to talk about. The Hogs dropped
Unfortunately,
their
we do.
the Hogs dropped their second straight SEC game, start 0-2 in conference play. But we at least have some positives to take away from this game. And I know as a Razorback fan, it kind of gets tiring having these moral victories and silver linings, but what else can you go on when you're losing games? But in their first SEC loss to Auburn, things just got ugly and there was a lot of quit. And that word was going around in the post-game press conferences. It felt like guys just quit on the game. And that was very hard and discouraging to watch. But in this Georgia game, really it was just more of a lack of execution. There was a lot better effort, a lot of
Mhm.
good things that we saw, especially after halftime. The first half of this game was just ugly. Shots weren't falling, couldn't take care of the ball. I think there were 10 first half turnovers. Nobody was making shots. Nobody was even making free throws. And it just was ugly. There was only 24 points scored by Arkansas in the whole first half. And of course, they're still struggling some on defense. So I thought that they played hard, and there were several possessions where I thought they had a very good defensive possession and they just didn't close it out, whether it be Georgia just hit a tough shot or they'd get an offensive rebound or just something like that would go wrong after Arkansas actually did show good defense earlier in the possession. So again, some small steps forward, still not what we want to see, obviously, but after halftime, though, Arkansas came out, was incredible from the free throw line, only 5 turnovers, which is, I think, perfectly acceptable for a half in SEC play. If you're somewhere in single digits or under 10 turnovers for the game, I think you're doing good. But actually matched Georgia's point total in the second half. Both teams scored 42 points. So that was a much bigger improvement. And we saw a lot of things that I liked in the second half, at least. Hopefully, something that they feel they can work on and build on. And specifically, man, just Tremont Mark went crazy in the second
Yeah.
half. He
Yep.
scored overall in the game, had 24 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks, went perfect 10 of 10 from the free throw line. That's very
hmm
rare in college basketball and ever in general. Uh, so that was a very encouraging thing to see. I think that was shout out to Joey for his player of the game prediction from the last pod. Said that Tremont Mark was due for a good game, and good game did he have.
hmm
So a good positive there for the Hogs. Love to see him get going, but overall there was just, to me, the most concerning thing was the offensive struggles that have continued because we've seen a lot of defensive problems with this team. And like I mentioned earlier, sometimes we see them get ironed out a little bit. Sometimes they're more acceptable and they just can't close out possessions. But this team was supposed to be more of an offensive oriented team. We knew that they were sacrificing some defense before we came into the season. And in this game, it's kind of been a trend lately that they haven't been playing very well on offense, and it was very evident in this game. They
hmm
were 3 of 21 from downtown as a team. None of the shooters were hitting shots. I think Caleb Battle and Keon Minifield combined to make 1 shot total in the game, and it was just a very poor offensive performance. And that's surprising to me because of, like I said, we brought in these transfers. We thought we were going to be a much more offensive oriented team, and it hasn't panned out. And they are having the defensive struggles we were worried about, and that's just a losing formula. So, how concerned are you guys about the offense as a whole? Is this just a shooting slump maybe for the team, then shots just kind of aren't falling, or is it a bigger issue that you're really worried about right now?
I'll jump in and speak on this first. I think it's a mixture of a couple different things. I do think it's some of just our shots not falling. Caleb Battle specifically, we saw him, explode for 20 plus points in the first couple games of the season, and I don't know if he's broken double digits in the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 games. But on a much larger scale, in the bigger picture, I don't think anybody wants to be the leader on offense, defense in general. We've seen players take over. We've seen Devo take over. We've seen Mark take over. But in regard to Mark, who had a phenomenal game against Georgia, arguably the best game that we've seen from a Razorback all year, it kind of feels like he is only playing hard or contributing a lot whenever he's hot. He knows his shots are falling and the ball's in his hands. And I would like to kind of see the offense run through him even when his shot's not falling, and to where he's still playing hard, and we're still seeing him create for other players or draw double teams, something to where he's not only playing hard when he's hot. And I feel like that's been the issue with a lot of our team is we're so concerned about hitting our shots, which obviously that's what offense is. But if you're not hot, there are other ways that you can contribute. You don't have to just completely give up on a basketball game just because you're not hitting shots. And I think by not having that leader who's willing to be a creator, who's willing to, just be that guy to step up, I think that hurts us offensively. And another thing is we don't have any flow to our offense. We don't have any rhythm. We run sets every now and then, and Musselman even talked about it in his press conference. Like they'll come out of a timeout and get wide open looks, but they're not hitting them. And if you're not hitting shots, you're not getting into a rhythm, then you go into playing one-on-one basketball, and it's just a snowball effect of just a complete and total chaotic game. And I will say I was happy with how we adjusted in the second half because we saw a lot of chaos in the first half. Everything was out of rhythm. We weren't hitting shots off the pass. It just wasn't a great half. It was very discombobulated, and we finally got into that flow in the second half. Ironically, once Tremont started hitting shots and getting in his own groove. So it's a lot of little things that are making it into a big problem offensively, I think.
I want to jump in real fast too about what you said about Caleb Battle, provide some context to that. Over his last 3 games, he has totaled 9 points.
There we go.
Not average, totaled 9 points.
Yep.
Shooting 12% from the field, 14% from three.
Mm-hmm.
And 4 games ago against Abilene Christian was his last double-digit game with 18 points, went 3 of 4 from downtown. Phenomenal game, and we just haven't seen it at all since then. So some context to that point that you made there.
Right. And Joey, I agree with you. Offense looks chaotic, and I think, in my opinion, the main reason why is because we are looking for that specific guy. We've always had that specific guy that could get going in the past, and that's just how Musselman ran his offense. And it's still not working, and we still do it. Luckily, it kind of did second half, like you said, with Mark going crazy there. But it's when it doesn't. What do we do when it doesn't work? Why can't we run a set that gets a few guys open? There are sets out there that work to give you different options. If this option doesn't work, do this and move into it. And I get these are talented guys. They can get their own, but they're not. That's the thing. They're not getting their own right now. And I just want to see a lot more ball movement. We had that. We just could not really execute. And I think the freedom that Musselman gives them offensively without running sets, these guys are just, I feel confused. We see turnovers where somebody goes back door, but the other guy did not know he was going back door. Boom, turn the ball over. Yeah. We need some type of structure. These guys need some type of structure to execute and focus on executing. And if it just so happens that one of those guys is having a game, then you can kind of let them play. But when we aren't getting anything to fall, run some sets, get some guys open in the lane, wide open threes. We saw a couple plays ran, and Davenport was open for a nice corner three occasionally. And I just want to see a little bit more of that. And it's just an overall lack of communication and lack of execution. I did like the effort, like you guys have said, much better effort. Just couldn't hit anything and couldn't give us 2 halves of basketball.
And Matt, I completely agree with everything you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with your statement about the running sets or anything, but we're getting open looks on these sets. We're just not hitting. And I think that's what can come into play is how we need to get into the paint and draw fouls. Our biggest win right now is how we're able to draw these fouls, in my opinion. And because when we're not hitting shots off open looks, what is there to do other than get to the line and get to the paint and hit layups? So it's just so frustrating when you're seeing these plays being run to get guys like Davenport, get guys like Devo, get guys, Battle, get them open, and then we're just flat out missing looks. So it's got me at a loss for this offense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yep. I agree with you guys on a lot of what you're saying. It is a lot of discombobulation and just lack of communication. I like how you said that, Matt. But the Hogs don't really have a lot of time to sulk in their loss after that 0-2 start, because we talked about it a little bit last week, or last pod, but this is the first time ever that they're actually staying on the road after this game, and so they're not coming back to Fayetteville before their next game, just due to the schedule of classes and where their games are. Because this weekend they're headed to Florida to play the Gators, a very good team, a team with a chance to win the SEC this year, according to Musselman himself. And so it's going to be another tough test coming up. Uh, I like a lot of what we did in the second half against Georgia, like we've been saying. I really hope they find something to build off of, but this is going to be another brutal contest in front of them to try to get their feet under them. And they're staring 0-3 in the face, 0-3 in SEC play, and that is not a good place to be. But we're going to come back with another quick preview of the Florida game and some key players and some very, very telling stats to watch out for in this upcoming game after a quick break.
As you guys know by now, we've partnered with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 each and every week of the college basketball season. We have a special offer that will be available starting on Tuesday, January 9th, and running through Monday, February 12th, the morning after Super Bowl 58. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, in honor of the big game, you can use the bonus code FIELD158 and you'll get $158 in free bets on your first wager with BetMGM, regardless of whether or not you win that first bet. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app. Sign up using the bonus code FIELD158. Deposit at least $5 and place your first wager on any game. You'll receive $158 in bonus bets regardless of the outcome of your bet. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD158 when you sign up. And remember, BetMGM is now available under one wallet in select states. As a New Jersey resident, this is super convenient when I have to go cover games in New York or Philly, which happens quite a bit. When you cross state borders, you just log into your existing account and fire away. You don't have to create separate accounts in each state. It's easy, it's simple, it's clean. And most importantly, we have some fun stuff coming up for the heart of the college basketball season. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odd boosts, and my favorite, a nice juicy parlay boost. So download the BetMGM app and sign up today. Field 158.
All right. Arkansas travels to Gainesville to take on Florida for their third SEC game. Hogs are 0-2. Gators are also 0-2. But Florida's losses have come to number 6 Kentucky and to Ole Miss, who is currently 14-1 on the season. And Ole Miss's only loss came to number 5 Tennessee. So Florida has had a pretty good season up to this point. They're a really good team, well-coached team. And that 0-2 record, I think, is not indicative of how good they actually are. So can't really pay attention to that at all. I think they're 0-2. They probably feel better about it than we feel about our 0-2 at this point. But Florida is currently number 56 in the net rankings, 44 in KenPom. A very good adjusted offense. I just had this pulled up. I think they are the third or fourth highest offense that Arkansas has played yet this year. Let me see here. Yeah, fourth. This will be the fourth highest rated offense that Arkansas has played yet this year. The other three were Auburn, North Carolina, and Duke. And so if we get that Arkansas team that played Duke, which we have never seen again, we could win a lot of games. But the North Carolina and Auburn game probably more telling to where we are at this point in the season, unless they can find something to build on and kind of bounce back from that loss. But a couple of key players for the Gators, a couple pair of transfers that are leading them in scoring. Walter Clayton is their leading scorer from Iona, averaging over 16 points a game, shooting 34% from deep, over 3 rebounds, over 3 assists a game, a very well-rounded player. Probably they're the only guy on their team averaging 30 minutes a game, really their leader on this squad. But in my opinion, the most dangerous player that we need to pay attention to is Zion Pullen. He's averaging also over 15 points a game and shooting 42% from long range. And he missed a couple games earlier in the year that I think is kind of hampering his averages. If you just look over his last 5 games, he is averaging almost 19 points a game on 67% from long range.
Huge
And
numbers.
that includes a 23-point season high game against Kentucky a couple games ago. Even though they lost, still a crazy game from this guard.
Mm-hmm.
6'4" senior guard, someone that I think could be very dangerous if the Hogs don't account for him. And some hope maybe in guarding him the way that Arkansas guarded Georgia's best player, Jabri Abdur-Rahim. They actually shut him down. That was another
Yeah,
positive
really
that we
did.
didn't talk a lot about in the Georgia game. I think he was 1 of 8 or 1 of 6 maybe
Mm-hmm.
from the field. He only hit
Yeah.
one shot, had 5
And-
total points.
And it
And
wasn't
that
lit
was
until late
that
in
was
the
the
second
killer
half.
shot too.
Yeah.
It was
It
the
was-
dagger, the one
yeah.
that he hit, and it really wasn't a terrible contest either when he
No.
hit it. Tremont Mark was there; he just wasn't quite close enough.
Mhm.
Jabri has a very high release on his jump shot, so he just kind of elevated, and I don't think Mark was anticipating that, so he was there. He just didn't have a hand in his face,
Right.
and but I think Devo did a fantastic job in that game, and when Mark was on him, I thought he did very well also. And Musselman has been known in the past to kind of take one player from the opposing team and just eliminate them from the equation. We've seen it time and time again, especially in like tournament play. And this is about as close to a tournament situation as you can get because we're approaching win or go home in almost every game from here on out.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be surprised at all if this is the guy that's at the top of Musselman's scouting report that where he says we're going to remove him from the game and make someone else beat us. So definitely something to watch for. I expect a lot of Devo, maybe some Mark on Pullen to see if they can negate him a little bit and slow him down from his hot shooting stretch he's been on.
Mm-hmm.
And then the most dangerous thing about Florida as a team is really something that Arkansas has struggled with this year, and that is just rebounding, both offensive rebounding and just total rebounding. And I found a very interesting stat when researching for this game in just the rebound disparity. When Arkansas wins the rebound battle this year, when they out-rebound their opponent, they are 8-1 on the season. Their only loss came to Memphis, who is currently number 13 in the country, and it was a 5-point loss less than 24 hours after a double overtime game.
Mm-hmm.
So not necessarily something to hang your head about, losing to a team that good on that short notice by single digits. So 8-1 when they win the rebound battle. When they lose the rebound battle, when they are out rebounded, 1-5 on the season. And that only win was very early in the season against Old Dominion, and it was a single-digit win. And if I remember, they were favored by like 19 points in that game, and ended up winning by 9. So an ugly win, even when they got out rebounded. So a very, very telling stat is the rebound battle. And the bad news, Florida is the #1 rebounding team in the country.
Mm-hmm.
They average over 45 rebounds a game, 16.5 offensive rebounds per game, which is second in the country. They field 4 players that are 6'9" or taller, including a true 7-footer at center to start the game, and Micah Henlokten, I think. And yeah, they're huge and they're physical and they rebound very well. And so that is going to be, to me, the key to this game is how can Musselman combat that in terms of rotations, and how can our guys combat that with just their physicality, because they still kind of lack some physicality in the games. We saw a lot more of it, a lot more fight against Georgia, but it's going to be a different ball game against Florida because this is a huge team.
Yeah.
Obviously, the best rebounding team in the country. I think that is the key to this game. So what do you guys think about Florida? What are you looking for from the Hogs in this game?
Yeah, Florida is coached incredibly well. Musk talked about it in the press conference after Georgia. Their second year coach, he for the Gators, he's very 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 smart. They're gonna play fast. They're gonna play physical, just like you said, Brandon. And we have to be ready to bump them back. We've obviously been bullied by bigs in past games, and I will say that I kind of liked how we handled some of Georgia's bigs toward the end of the game and against Georgia. We kind of sent a double team down from the guards to help out with Brazil down low, and that seemed to do well. We forced a couple turnovers off of it, so I'm kind of looking to double team some of their bigs down in the paint and get some turnovers off of that. But something that I noticed in the Georgia game that I'm really interested to see if it moves forward into the Florida game is the quickness of our guards on screen switches. So on the offensive side of the ball for us. So we did a lot of high middle screens to get mismatches. And when we're not hitting shots and we're trying to run through Mark, I really want to see us get some mismatches with the bigs of Florida so we can use our speed to get by them. The way that Florida runs their defense, they kind of leave that second level open. So, and they sink their 7-footer back into the paint. So I think if we're able to get some one-on-one looks with a mismatch, we'll, especially for Mark, be able to get some good looks in the mid range with his length, and I think we'll be able to get to the paint fairly, not necessarily easily with a team of their physicality, but I think that it's going to be a lot of one-on-one basketball with a lot of open space in the second level of the court. So definitely want to see us attacking that mid range spot from Mark and guys like Devo who can hit good runners, battle people like that.
Yeah, I agree. I want to see them, get in the paint, draw some fouls there. First thing I want, two, count them, two full halves of basketball, please. I don't want to have to, if I want to rewatch the game, I don't want to have to skip a half because of how disappointed I was in us. So two halves of basketball. And another thing is, I don't know how these stats line up, but I think it was right after the Duke game. Brandon, you had a stat on Chandler Lawson and how he plays 7-footers. I want to see that Chandler Lawson again. I want to see somebody who plays some defense again. And yeah, that's really all I want. Just two halves of basketball and stop those bigs if we can. Um, that's really all I got. That's really our only hope. So
Yeah, more effort, continue the effort, and got to find a way to combat the bigs. You're exactly right, Matt. I think it was after the Duke game. I researched something about how he played against Zach Edey in the preseason, Armando Bacot, and Filipowski, and he held all of them below their averages, but more importantly, they were well below their field goal percentage and well below their block totals. So I thought that he played them all very well. We haven't seen him play at that level for a little while though, and I don't know if that's
right.
purely a matchup thing or if just something has changed. I don't really know, but I agree completely that we're going to have to see all four bigs in this game play well, I think, between Brazil, Graham, Mekhi Mitchell, and Chandler Lawson. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the time we have two of them on the court together for this game, just because of how big Florida is. Uh, I mean, you can maybe try to mismatch them the other direction and go with the small ball four, maybe spread the court to where they make their big men have to guard the perimeter. That could be a strategy, but I worry about us getting killed on the rebounds if we do something like that. So very interested to see how Musselman handles this big test in this one.
Brandon, I'm just gonna hop in real quick, and Hog fans, I'm talking directly to you. I saw a lot of hate, unnecessary hate, on Mitchell in the Georgia game. Yes, he made a couple mistakes, but he played with so much more effort. I want you to look at me when I say this. He played so well in the Georgia game, and I am extremely disappointed that people were calling to bench him because he was, in my opinion, our best big against Georgia. And I think that it is just completely ridiculous to say that we need to bench a guy who is giving his all in a game like that. Obviously, he didn't give it 100% of the time. I'm not saying that, but he did much better than what Razorback Twitter, Razorback X, whatever you want to call it, gave him credit for.
Yeah, I agree completely. He had a very strong start to that game too, passing the ball well, finishing inside, solid help side defense, a lot of effort there. I know that JC Jackson Collier has his hoop film that he does on Twitter,
Hmm.
and he posted it earlier today, and you can even in some of his breakdowns, even when we were getting scored on, he was talking about how Mackay was in the right position, just something
Yes.
else went wrong. They made a tough
Yep.
shot, our guard didn't recover, whatever, but the bigs were playing much better against Georgia. So I agree completely. Um, all right. Arkansas's headed to Florida down 0-2 in the SEC. Really need a big win. Not sure if it's going to happen here in Gainesville. The Hogs don't have a very good record in Gainesville to begin with, much less when they're struggling like this. So we'll open it up with another simple question, just like last pod. Do you guys think that Arkansas wins this game?
You know, I'm gonna say no. I don't think that's a surprise, but I think that the Hogs are gonna give themselves a chance with this one. I'm predicting about a 5 to 10 point loss. You know, I don't think it's gonna be a blowout. I think that Muss is frustrated. It seemed like he was frustrated in the press conference. I think the team is overall disappointed with their play. And I think they're going to look to prove the doubters wrong in a big game that they're expected to get blown out in, frankly.
Yeah, I was going to say no, but I listened to my gut. I may just be hungry, but I'm listening to my gut, and I'm saying yes. I'm saying yes. They're gonna win because I don't know what it is about the Razorbacks, but when all odds are just completely and utterly against them, especially like you said in that rebounding category, they'll pull it out. So I'm gonna say yes because I'm a betting man.
You know what Matt's hungry for? He's hungry for his socks that he's going to eat whenever the Hogs make the tournament. We talked about it a couple episodes ago.
Live on the podcast.
Live on the podcast on a silver platter.
All right, well,
Please.
I think that I'm leaning more in agreement with Joey that I do think the Hogs do play well in this game. I think they turn some heads both within the fan base, maybe even nationally. Maybe they play very, very well, but I just think that it's going to be too much to overcome with how good this Florida team is. If this
Yeah.
game was in Bud Walton Arena, I might have a different answer, honestly. Even though I think right now I know that Florida is the better team with how both teams have been playing. I think that the Hogs are hungry and maybe at a turning point to where it's desperation mode, and we have seen some good things lately. I think that in a different situation, maybe they do it, but in Gainesville, it's never a good time for Arkansas, no matter the sport, no matter how the season is going. It's hard to win in Florida. So I'm gonna say that they drop another one and go 0-3
Hmm.
in SEC play, and that sucks. It's a tough hole to climb out of. NCAA tournament is a far grasping reach at this point, but still on the horizon for now. But all right, so move on to the next question here. Who do you think is going to be Arkansas's player of the game in this one, whether they win or lose? Who has the biggest game for Arkansas? Joey, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Tremont Mark again. I think that he kind of got into a good rhythm in that second half, and I mentioned earlier, I really like Mark's game against this Florida defense. Like I said, they sink their 7 footer back and leave that mid range level completely open. I think that that's perfect for a guy like Tremont Mark, especially if he gets a guy like that 6'4" guard that you talked about on him in some type of rotation or mismatch. I think that he can score at that level with ease. So I think that Mark's going to give us a game against Florida.
And I'm going with Minifield. So my reasoning is not necessarily thinking he's going to score the most points out of everybody. It could be Mark, who knows, could be Devo. But I think with his speed, and like Joey was saying, switching those screens on offense, getting by those bigs or forcing them into foul trouble. I think we're going to see a big game in the free throw area with Minifield
Hmm.
and just getting those bigs into foul trouble. We do that, we give ourselves a real good shot. And Musselman's known for getting some bigs into foul trouble. We did it with Edie in the scrimmage, and then we did it with Filipowski. So I hope Minifield's that guy that gets in there, and I think he will be.
And just real quick before we get into the next thing, I want to ask y'all, what do you expect the starting lineup to be for this one? We've seen so many different lineups. So do we go big, or do we kind of go with the quickness? What do y'all think?
I wouldn't be surprised if you went back to that one game where he started three bigs.
Hmm.
There was something weird going on with that game. Something about Devo not showing up to a team function, or I don't know what the excuse on that was. Whenever Devo came off the bench, but I would not be surprised to see something along the lines of Devo, Mark, uh, Lawson, or Mitchell, either one at center with Brazil, and then potentially Graham at the four.
Yeah.
And if not, then I wouldn't be surprised to see Davenport slide back into the starting five. And either
Interesting.
way, I think we see Devo and Mark at the one and the two, and then some combination of forwards after that. In
Hmm.
my opinion, who freaking knows at this point with Musselman,
Right.
but
Yeah. I'm thinking big as well. I was actually going to say I would personally like to see Davenport back in that starting lineup at the three spot, but I still think big is probably going to be the option he runs.
Yeah.
Just match him.
I think I agree with y'all. Yep.
Yep. And my player of the game, I don't know if this is cheating or not, but I'm going to say the front court, the big men. If we win this game, it's going to have to be an effort between all of them. And
You're
if I had to
100%
pick one, I'm
right.
going to say that Lawson steps up and has a big game the way he has against uh, other teams like that. And kind of like Matt said, it might not show up on the stat sheet. I think that he's going to have to be a beast on the boards, but just defensively, just holding,
Hmm.
boxing out, keeping them from getting offensive rebounds, inside points in the paint.
Hmm.
He's just going to have to be a presence, and but all of the forwards are. It can't just be him. So I think the three bigs in Brazil, all four of them, I think are going to have a group effort, and it's really a team effort on rebounding. But if I had to pick, if someone was going to win us this game, it's the front court in general. So
Yeah.
that's my answer to that question.
Okay. A little cheat, but I'll give it to you.
All right. One final question. This is going to be real quick. Just give me the game that you think it happens in, but we're not super confident. I know Matt if he predicted a win in this game, maybe not, but if Arkansas doesn't win this game, when do you think they get their first SEC win? Their next five games are at Florida, Texas A&M at home, South Carolina at home, at Ole Miss, and then Kentucky at home. And I'll jump in first on this one. I think I think it'll be one of the next two home games. I don't think it'll be Florida. I would not be surprised at all if they beat a good Texas A&M team at Bud Walton Arena. I think getting back home after a long road trip might be the boost they need, and they probably get it done there.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Brandon. I think we will probably steal one against Texas A&M at home, but I don't fully expect to win against Florida either.
So you already said I expect to win against Florida, but let's say that just doesn't happen. I would still put all my money on this one. Not really. Um, I don't think we pulled out against Texas A&M just because I mean, really, we haven't played phenomenally at home unless it was against Duke. So I'm going South Carolina as our first win. I think it's realistic as of what we've seen so far.
Hmm.
All right, yeah, that's fair. All right, that's all we got for this episode today. Really looking forward to more Razorback basketball. Hope they can find a way to be competitive against Florida, maybe pull out a big win. They desperately need it. But we really appreciate you guys coming to hang out with us, listen to some Razorback basketball talk. Reminder, we are brought to you by the Field of 68 Podcast Network. You can find us on YouTube, Twitter, wherever you get your podcasts under 30 Minutes of Hell. I have been your host, Brandon Baker, joined as always by Joey Jackson and Matt Jackson. And as always, go Hogs.